15 minutes of the... Okay. Okay, it's on. Okay, I'm Barbara Blake, and it's July 9th, and I'm talking to Mr. I.D. Midgett of Waves. Could you first tell us where you were born?
Well, I was actually born in Ocracoke County.
Is that right?
Yeah, on the beach of a place called Washwoods. My father was in the Coast Guard there.
Uh-huh. She's all right. She can go sleep.
Go lay down. And, of course, my people were from this village. My mother was born and raised in Rodanthe, and my father was born and raised here.
What was your mother's name?
Betty Midgett. So I'm descended from a long line of Midgett.
So, and what was your father's name?
Dorland Midgett.
Okay, and he was from Waves?
Yeah,
Oh.
he was born and raised here.
Well, I'll be darned. So how did your parents meet?
Well, I guess they were pretty close together, you know.
Yeah.
It was a natural thing, I guess.
Yeah, these three communities are real close, aren't they?
Well, they were, you know, separated, used to be with about a mile or a mile and a half
Right.
between each village. But now it's all run together, so it's all one village.
Ah.
I guess they named the post office Rodanthe Way Salvo to keep the identity of the three villages,
Right.
so they wouldn't be lost or something, you know, the names. Each village used to have a post office. They had Rodanthe Post Office, and back when I was a kid, it was North Rodanthe, and this was South Rodanthe.
Uh-huh.
We were all Rodanthe, and then the Salvo was actually called Clark's.
Oh.
And when they put the post office here, my aunt was the first postmistress, and
Really?
she picked the name Waves.
And what was her name?
Anna Midgett.
Anna Midgett.
Yeah.
And she picked Waves?
Yeah.
And just what made her pick Waves?
I don't know. Probably it was prophetic, because we do have a lot of waves at times and storms.
Right. Wow.
So that's the way Waves got its name.
How about that? And now, were all your grandparents from this area too?
Yes. Yep. I can trace my genealogy back to 1670 something, or 30 something, really.
Really? Wow. So who was your first ancestor that came to this area?
I guess the first one would have been one named Thomas Midgett.
Uh-huh.
And back in those days, the name wasn't spelt with a G; it was spelt with a Y.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's like Midgett.
Yeah, and the first Midgett was actually, our first ancestor was actually named Maggot, Maggott.
Really?
Yeah. And through the years, through various spellings, I guess, and interpretations in courthouses, why it wound up Midgett.
Aren't you glad?
I guess. Sounds a little better, maybe.
So how did you end up being born in Ocracoke?
My father was in the service, Coast Guard,
Uh-huh.
and there was a life-saving station there. And he was stationed at the life-saving station, and they had small houses for the crew and their people, their spouses and children.
Oh, okay.
And I wound up being born there,
And what year were you born?
1930.
Okay.
So I'm pushing 72.
Wow. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister, 13 years older than I am. She lives in Virginia Beach.
Was she born in Ocracoke too?
No, she was born here
Oh.
in this village. Our old home used to be immediately back of where my home's at now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is there still land, or has that washed away?
Well, a lot of it's washed away, but there's still land back there.
Oh, okay.
It was my great-grandmother's old home. And, she gave it when she died to two of her grandchildren.
Okay.
And my father bought it from this portion from one of the grandchildren. That was
Right.
his share.
And what was your great-grandmother's name?
Mary Spence Hooper. She was a Hooper.
Okay.
The only one in the clan that, from clear back to the 1800s that didn't have a midget name.
But there are a lot of hoopers around here, aren't there?
Yeah, there's a lot in Salvo and Avon.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of hoopers.
So, how long did you live in Currituck before you came back here?
I was just a baby.
Oh.
I don't even remember when we came back.
Yeah.
My first remembrance was here. My father's old home was across the road. He built that in 1933.
So that's where you grew up?
That's where I grew up.
And that's still there?
Yeah.
Does your family member live there?
My youngest son lives there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
So you've since built this place, huh?
Yeah, I built this. And my oldest son, he has a home right back of it. And his son lives right back of him.
Oh, wow. That's nice that everybody's so close.
Yep. Well, I don't, sometimes you wonder.
Now, there's so many people in this area that have served in the Coast Guard, right?
Yeah, my grandfather was in the Coast Guard. My father retired from the Coast Guard.
And then probably before that, the life-saving station?
Well, my grandfather was life-saving service. Prior to that, I guess they were all fishermen or whatever they could find to do.
Right. Were you in the Coast Guard?
No, I was in the Army for 6 years. I was in during the Korean War.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, so you really broke the tradition.
Yeah, more or less.
And what made you not want to go in the Coast Guard?
I don't know. Maybe I figured I could walk further than I could swim.
And then what did you do when you got out?
Fish.
So you're a commercial fisherman?
Well, I did for several years, and then I went to work with the state running ferries at Oregon Inlet.
Oh, okay.
And I stayed with them for 33 years until I retired from the ferry that runs from Ocracoke to Swan Quarter.
You ran that ferry?
13 years.
That's a long way from here, and
Yeah,
that's a long
yeah.
ferry.
Well, we worked a week on and a week off, so I stayed right on the ferry for a week
Okay.
and come home for a week.
Wow. And did you work for the Oregon Inlet Ferry as long as there was one, and then they built the bridge?
Yeah,
Is that what happened?
I started to work with them in '61, and I think it was '61. Yeah, just before the Ash Wednesday storm.
Oh.
And
Was that in 60?
60, that was in '61, I believe.
61.
Yeah. 61? No, 62.
Okay.
I started work with them, I think, in '61, and that was in '62, I believe.
The storm was in 62.
Yeah. Yeah. In March of '62.
Okay. And what year did they build that bridge?
Oh. If I'm not mistaken, they opened the bridge itself in either '63 or '64. I'm not sure which.
Oh, so it was after that storm.
Yeah.
They
Oh, yeah.
decided they wanted
Yeah.
to build a
They had
bridge?
just started working on the bridge when the Ash Wednesday storm came.
Right. Do you remember that storm?
Imagine.
What happened?
I started to work that morning about 4 o'clock, and up at the refuge headquarters is at P Island. The sea broke through and swamped my car. Stalled her out.
car?
Yeah. And I made it to the station then. They had the station now has been moved out, down to Salville, where the windsurfing place is at.
Oh, right.
But then that station which was prior to the all black station.
P Island?
Yeah. And there was a caretaker for the Fish and Wildlife Service staying there, and him and his wife. I made it there and thawed out and got something to eat. They gave me something to eat. And then after the tide went down some, at low water, I walked home, waded home, all the way to Road Anthony.
Really? How many miles was that?
It's about 7 miles. And it was cold too. I can tell you that.
And so all of the island was underwater?
Well,
You had to wade?
no, that part of it was all underwater.
Yeah.
Um,
Weren't you scared that you would hit a hole or something?
well, I didn't have much choice. I had a family I wanted to get to. I didn't know what kind of situation they had here, you know, as bad as it was there. But
Right.
luckily here we didn't have much. All right. All right.
It's okay.
All right.
It's okay.
Go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. Lay down.
She's a great guard dog. Yes, you are. Nice.
She's a hairy thing too.
Did the houses get flooded in waves?
No. In these three villages, there wasn't any flooding, except a little bit in the very north end of Rodanthe.
Right.
But about to where the island convenience store is at now is about as far as the tide run down. But everything up the beach was all flooded. Nag's Head really had it bad.
Right.
Up that way. But no, we didn't get any fear.
Now, the whole time you were doing the ferry work, were you also commercial fishing on your time off?
On my time off, yes.
Okay, because I understand that you're one of the last fishermen that still dory fishes. Is that true?
Pardon?
You still fish with a dory?
Yeah, son has a dory.
Your son
we fish,
does?
yeah.
Do you
We
still
fish
use
together.
it?
Yeah. We don't do much of it anymore because we do a little in the winter rock fishing and in the late fall and early winter for trout fishing. But that's about it. Sometimes in the spring we lay the net out, but there's got so much traffic now, on the beach that
Right. Makes
it's a
it
problem.
hard.
Yeah.
And then there's pretty big limits on how many.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What you can get and how many.
Yeah.
Yep. They're limiting is death, the fishermen. It's a dying breed, I can assure you that.
Has it always been hard to be a fisherman?
Well, it's always been hard, but used to you could make a living at it because you didn't have a whole lot of restriction
Right.
on what you could catch.
Yeah.
But now it's so bad that they've restricted you to death.
Right.
I just do it now as a supplement my retirement. But I surely wouldn't advise a young man to go into it.
Yeah. Is it particularly hard to fish from Rodanthe if you want to get out in the ocean?
Well, the only place you could go unless it's in a dory would be you either have to go to Hatteras Inlet or Oregon Inlet.
Right. Did
One
anybody do that?
No, I don't think so, not here.
'Cause how far is that run to Oregon Inlet from here?
It'd be about 17 miles
Wow.
by boat
Yeah.
and about 30 miles by boat going to Hatteras.
Gosh.
So there's nobody that really does it. There's one, I think there's one man that lives in this area that has a boat, but he doesn't bring it here. He docks it up at either Oregon Inlet or Wanchee
Right.
or at Hatteras,
Uh-huh.
one or the other. He fishes primarily in the wintertime for croaker and trout.
Right. Do any of the fishermen keep their boats at Hatteras?
Oh
or
yeah,
their-
yeah.
And that would make more sense.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
yeah,
If
that's
they want
what
to go out there.
they normally keep them either at Hatteras or at Oregon Inlet one or Wanchee.
Yeah.
It's really too far, and the depth of water that we have here is makes it almost prohibitive for a big boat.
Oh yeah, so shallow and
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, the sound side is real shallow right in this area.
Yeah. So what kind of fishing do you do in the Sound?
Primarily for bluefish, trout, mackerel, flounder.
Pound net,
No, gill net.
gill net.
Yeah. We used to pound net, but not anymore. It's so expensive, and then we don't have if you catch a lot of fish, we don't have a fish processing facility here. You either have to go to Avon or you'd have to go to Wanchee.
Yeah, who do you sell your fish to?
I take my fish now to Austin Seafood in Nag's Head.
You go all the way to Nag's Head?
Yeah.
Do you have a refrigerated truck or something?
No,
Just
no, we
coolers?
just coolers.
Yeah.
Yeah. We fish every day, so we put them in coolers.
Do you get better prices doing that?
Well, normally, yes. Of course, prices are not really good anymore.
I hear
considering
prices
everything.
are awful.
Yeah. Yeah, they catching a lot of shrimp up there now. A guy told me today, and the price is going right down.
They're catching shrimp in
Up-
Albemarle?
No, up in Croatan Sound
Croatan
and
Sound?
Roanoke Sound. up around Roanoke Island.
I didn't know they caught shrimp this far north.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They say, the fellow told me today that there's more shrimp than he's ever seen up there.
Is that right?
And the earliest he's ever seen.
Oh.
So, in fact, that's what he's doing now, is peeling shrimp for a head.
Okay. Because that's what, shrimping's been pretty good in Carter.
Yeah, they say it's really good down there.
Yeah,
No.
but the prices are,
No.
I feel bad because you can buy shrimp for $1.50 a pound, $2 a pound.
Is that right?
Which means the fishermen are getting nothing.
Yeah, that's right. If you can buy them that cheap or not.
Yeah. So that's a
They're
shame.
probably getting about 75 or $1.
Why are prices so low? Is it
They say there's a influx of them. There's so many right in this area,
right?
and then they get a lot of imports from Ecuador.
Oh,
That's the big thing, those frozen shrimp. But they'll send them here cheaper than what the men can fish for.
Do any of the fishermen sell directly to the restaurants?
No, I don't think so. The only way they could sell directly to the restaurant is if the restaurant has a license to buy fish.
Right.
That'd be the only way they could do it.
Yeah.
There is several that does that, but most of the fish you get now are pre-packed frozen fish. Very few restaurants have fresh fish in them.
Yeah. Now, how did you learn how to fish?
Well, I guess I just picked it up because my father was in the service, and I started when I was 10 years old.
Did he fish as well?
No.
No,
Well, he
no?
did after he retired a little bit, but not a great amount.
Right.
But I just picked it up on mine.
Did
Went
you-
with some other people, older people,
Right.
when I was a kid.
Did you used to fish on those Dory cruise
Oh, yeah.
when you were smaller?
Yeah.
Could you tell me how that works?
Well, now it's motorized, but back when I started, it was a row with oars, and they'd put the net in the boat and row out, come back ashore, and at first it was pulled by hand, and then back during World War II, when the four-wheel drives began to come out, then everybody bought old surplus four-wheel drive vehicles to pull their nets with,
I see.
and
When
to pull their dories with.
When the Dory takes off, is a part of the net still on the shore? Or
Yeah,
is it-
you leave an anchor on the shore.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's feeding the net out.
that's right, over the stern of the boat.
And then the Dory
Makes
circles
a circle.
around,
That's right.
and hopefully there's this big school of fish there.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, sometimes that's what we call hauling. Now, when they lay a net out, they go out and drop an anchor overboard
Uh-huh.
and let the net sit there.
That must be what they do in Salter Path.
Probably, yeah.
They have those
Yeah.
stop nets for
Yeah.
mullet.
Yeah. Mullet and spot.
Yeah.
Do a lot of it. But then you come ashore with a rope, or a hawser we call it,
Right.
and that's the way you pull the net in. And you take the truck and hook onto the line, pull the one in, and that puts them in a circle, encompasses the fish in a circle.
Oh, okay.
And you just keep pulling it in, we have what we call a bunk net. And it's where all the fish, it's heavier than the rest,
Right.
where all the fish wind up. And you pull them up on the beach.
And then you have this big pile of beautiful fish.
Well, you hope. Not always, but you
I
hope you
bet
do.
you've had some big catches.
We have had some big ones, yeah. But not anymore, very seldom. Used to catch a lot of big bluefish when they first started breaking in here. The old big ones,
Right.
15, 20 pounds.
Were there ever any sharks in there with them? Or any-
Sometimes, yeah. A lot of what we call dog sharks, smaller sharks.
Right.
Sometimes you catch a lot of those. Very seldom you ever catch a real big one. The net probably wouldn't hold them anyway.
Oh,
They go right on through it.
So this fall, how many Dory fishermen will be fishing?
Oh, it's hard to say. There'd probably be all of Dare County, 25 or 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 25 or 30. But most of them, that's all they do anymore, just when the rock season. They come bring them out of hiding just for rock season.
Right.
Very few does it anymore that during the spring and the summer. Well, you don't do it in the summer anyway because there's too much trash. And,
Hey, did you ever, when you were growing up, you could eat sea turtle, couldn't you?
oh yes, I don't like it. The wife does. And the children.
Really?
Yeah.
'Cause people are crazy about it, Hatteras Island.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so, did people ever actively fish for turtle, or did you just happen to catch them?
I can't ever remember them actually fishing for them.
Yeah.
If it was an incidental thing.
Mm-hmm.
If they happened to catch one, they'd bring him home and eat him.
Right.
But they didn't go out and fish for 'em.
Yeah.
Fish for turtle.
So, as a boy, what did you used to do for fun around here?
Well, when I was a small boy, we used to take old hooks that come off of barrels
Uh-huh.
and a piece of copper wire and run it down the road, making like we were driving a car.
Oh, yeah.
That was one thing that we done.
Where would you find those? Laying up on the beach?
Normally on an old barrel, an old wooden barrel would have a stave around it or a hook, a metal hook,
Right.
and we get the hook off of it. Take a piece of copper wire and bend it and run it along
Right.
like we were driving cars. But there wasn't a whole lot to do. We had to amuse ourselves. We take bottles and play like they were cars, push them around, make roads, bridges and underpasses and stuff. But there wasn't a whole lot of money on the island, so you didn't get a whole lot. Mostly if you got something for Christmas, it was clothes, something to wear.
Right. Did you mess around in the water a lot?
Oh yeah,
Sail?
yeah, we lived in the water.
Yeah. Did you find anything washed ashore?
Sometimes you would, but back during the war there was a lot of stuff wash up. But most of the time you couldn't even go on the beach. During the war when the submarines were up here so much, they didn't want you on the beach.
Oh, they wouldn't let you on
No.
the beach.
Mm.
Really?
No.
So didn't you want to creep over there?
Oh yeah, we did at times.
Did you?
Yeah.
And what would you see?
Well, you can see a lot of things. I never did see a body wash up, but a lot of people did.
Yeah.
There was a lot of wreckage that would wash up, and actually there was a lot of oil on the beach back then.
Oil?
Yeah, where these tankers would be sunk off here, and it would wash up on the beach. It would be in big globs. If you went on the beach, you wound up having to come home and use kerosene to get your feet clean.
And everybody would know that you're on the beach.
You'd been on the
when you
beach.
weren't supposed to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How'd they ever get rid of all that oil?
It just eventually disappeared, I guess, covered up or washed away, or dissipated. Probably a lot of it's still over here. It probably washed away now because the beach is going away so much.
Right.
It's probably washed somewhere else.
Do you remember ever seeing any shipwrecks?
Oh yes, yeah, there used to be a lot of shipwrecks on the beach. And during the war, you could see them of the night burning off here. You could hear the explosions where they'd be torpedoed, and you could actually see the fires burning off here.
That's probably about as close as World War II got to
It's
shore.
probably in this country.
Yeah. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can see them burning off here just about every night, especially during the first part of the war. You could hear the explosions when they would torpedo them,
Wow. Now, what is that shipwreck, that thing that's right off the Salvo Inn when you go straight out? There's this old wreck of a...
Oh, that was called the Old Richmond.
What was that?
It was a steam vessel, and she wrecked there. I don't know what year. It's been there ever since I could remember.
Yeah.
But that was actually the shaft from the ship, the propeller shaft,
Right.
and that's been there now. Well, I'm 70 years old, and it's been there ever since I could remember.
Wow. Do people go diving on it?
I think they do at times. They say they catch a lot of sheep's head on it.
Right.
But I have seen times when you could walk to it.
Uh-huh.
It was so close to the beach. The beach was built out around.
So that was before World War II then that thing went down.
Oh yeah, a long time. That went before I can ever remember. They had a lot of shipwrecks there. They had a Kohler.
Where was the Kohler wreck?
The Kohler is, probably 4 or 5 miles south of Salvador, between there and Avon.
Okay. Is there anything left of it?
Yeah, occasionally some of it comes out. They burned it years ago. Back during the first part of the war, or before the war, to get the orange spikes out of it. And it burned it burned to the ground.
Why did they want the iron spikes?
I guess they were shipped overseas to Japan so they could make ammunition out of them. I think that's what they done with it.
Yeah.
Germany or Japan or somewhere. But there were some people that actually salvaged the iron out of it and sold it.
Really? Now, so that was in the 40s. The Park Service came in the 50s?
Yeah, in the early 50s, 52 or something like that.
Now, do you remember that whole time?
Oh, yes, yeah. Everybody was dead set against the Park Service when they tried to come down here.
Right.
And I could be numbered among one of them. Of course, I was just come back from overseas out of the service when they were trying to get it Park Service down here. And they had several meetings, but it was a foregone conclusion.
Did you go to the meetings?
Oh, yeah. There was some pretty heated arguments.
Where would they hold those?
Usually at the old community building, schoolhouse up here.
Oh, right empty?
Yeah. And they actually went to Mandio once and to, I think went to Little Washington once. Had a hearing with the federal down there, federal courthouse in Washington. And, but now the only thing I'm sorry of, they didn't take more.
Oh, really? Because you can see what's happening
Yeah,
now.
that's right. Right.
Isn't that funny?
Yep.
Well, what were some of the bad parts of the Park Service, and what were some of the good things?
I don't know. I guess really it depends on the individual.
Did people lose their land, actually?
Well, some did. There was all of the ocean side that people owned was lost to the Park Service, and they didn't really give them a whole lot of money for it.
Yeah. But there were houses right there on the ocean?
Oh, no.
Just people owned the land?
Just owned the land, but no, back in those days, people didn't build on the ocean side.
Right.
They knew that it was foolish.
Yeah.
Everybody was built on this side. On the Sound side. They knew that eventually it was going to wash away over there.
Right. They had more common sense, didn't they?
I think, probably. Well, not only that, but the bulk of their livelihood was on this side. There wasn't all that much fishing in the ocean. Most of their fishing was done in the Sound.
Oh, so people were more oriented toward the Sound.
Yeah, and then you didn't have to worry about the seas breaking over. You know, you got it from the Sound.
And all the
But you
commerce
didn't get
would
it from there.
happen? The boats would come in on the Sound side?
Yeah,
And the mailboat?
The mailboat, the fish boat.
Where did that come in here?
Well, before they dug the creek out at Rodanthe, they used to come in. The mailboat would come out and anchor off in deep water, and somebody would shove out or row out and pick up the mail and take passengers, pick up passengers.
Right.
And then they, I think by the time they dug the creek out, then the mail come the other way, through the land and across the inlet.
Right.
But a fish boat still come in there, picked up fish, brought passengers. There was an old boat they called the Hattie Creef that made regular runs from Elizabeth City to Hatteras.
What was it called?
The Hattie Creef.
The Hattie Creek?
Creef.
Creek.
Yeah. Yep. Hattie
Must have
Creef.
been in somebody's last name. Creek.
Creef. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Probably somebody's wife.
Yeah.
They named her after. But she would leave Elizabeth City and come to Wanchese, and then from Wanchese would come here, and from here go to Avon, and from Avon to Hatteras.
Okay.
But Avon they couldn't get all the way in because then they didn't have a channel in there. So when they dug the channel out up there at Rodanthe, the people from Avon that bought fish, they would bring their fish all the way up here.
Right.
to put on the fish boat
Ah.
and pick up ice and take it back to Avon.
Yeah.
But she, like I say, they didn't have deep enough water to get into Avon, so they just went right on to Hatteras and here, Wanchi. That was her 3 stops.
Yeah. And so, when the Park Service started buying land, what were people afraid of? I mean, what were some of the objections?
Well, they had had some, I guess, some bad dealings with the government, and they just didn't want the government into it. In their affairs, you know, and it was just people just didn't want it. I think a lot of it they just didn't know what it was all about.
Right.
It was an unknown thing, and the government coming in, the people just didn't want it.
Yeah. How about ongoing?
I don't think there's any problem now, not any big problem, except with the developers. They'd like to have all of the beach.
Right.
So they could build some more mini hotels out there.
There's a lot of building going on around here.
It's ridiculous.
You think they're going to control any of that at some point, or just let it go?
There's too much money in it. And money's what makes the thing go. So
Who's making all that money? I mean, somebody's
developers, no, not normally. Not most of it is not local. There is a few locals that have done pretty good in the real estate business and the bigger businesses, but most of it are outside developers coming in, and they could care less about the island. All they're interested in is get the money, build it out, and go somewhere else and do the same thing.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame.
You finished?
Yeah,
Okay.
Would you like to join us?
oh, to sit and listen.
Here, I'll move out of your way.
No, you're not in my way. Go ahead.
Okay, so how would you describe Waves? What makes Waves unique from Salvo?
Well, it isn't unique anymore. It was never really unique when you get right down to it. It was just a village where people lived. That's all.
Right.
Mostly it was in Rodanthe. They had Midgetts, O'Neills, Meekinses, and Grays. In Waves, there was one family of Grays and one family of O'Neills. The rest were all Midgetts. In Salvo, there were primarily Paynes, Hoopers, Grays. It was kind of clannish, more or less.
Right.
Each village had its own clan, you might as well say.
Well, is Waves closer to Rodanthe because it used
Well, it
to
was
be
about the same distance.
Rodanthe, South Rodanthe, but are the families more mixed up?
Well, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, the families were more interrelated in Rodanthe and Waves than they were in Waves or Rodanthe and Salvo.
Okay. So the communities did a lot of things together, and the churches.
Oh yeah. Well, Rodanthe and Waves had one church, and then Salvo had its own church,
Oh, okay.
and then they were all Methodist churches, and then there came a Holiness church in at Salvo, and a lot of people started going to that.
Oh.
But there were very few people from these two villages that went down there. Maybe one now and then, you know.
Okay.
Primarily, they went to the Methodist church that's up here between here and Rodanthe.
Right.
It was in between the two villages.
Is that where you went as a boy?
Yeah.
You still go to the same church?
I don't go to church.
Yeah.
Very seldom. Marriages and deaths. And then only when I have to.
Didn't they used to have camp meetings out on the beach in Rhode
Yeah,
Island?
but I can't really remember the camp meetings. I can remember one time when I was a real small boy that they had a tent or a pavilion, they called it.
Right.
It was nothing more than a big tent up here, and had services out under that tent. But I can just barely remember. It wasn't something that stand out in my mind, you know.
When you were a kid, how did you get around? If you wanted to go to Avon, or if you wanted to go all the way down to
You
Hatteras?
either walked or rode a horse.
Right.
Back then they did start having cars, you know, and you could go in a
Right.
car. But as a normal thing, it was sailboat, horse, or you walk.
Right. And how about a bus? Was there a bus that would...
Well, back during the war, the Midgett brothers started running a bus.
Are you kin to them?
Yeah, distant,
Mm-hmm.
but kin.
Right.
All midgets are kin.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the older families on the island are somewhere related. In fact, I've been studying our genealogical charts, and I have a book there that a couple ladies researched all the cemeteries in Dare County, and we're all interrelated. There's few of the older families on the island that somewhere are not related.
Do you have a family burial ground?
We started one out here when my mother and father died. Now, my great-grandfather, 5 times removed, is buried right below my house here.
Oh,
The
really?
road that goes to my harbor, and my great-grandmother is buried there.
Is there still a marker?
Yeah. It's hard to read, but it's still there. You can read it. He died in 1841. Born 17 something. I'm not sure just exactly the date. And my great-grandmother was buried over here. She died in, I think, 1919, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Her grave is back here, and his grave is right below the house. So, he's 5 times back.
It's
Well,
way back.
yeah. Yeah, it goes way back.
Is there, are there any landmarks that used to be here that aren't here anymore? Like any cuts or channels or harbors or...
No, well, there's a couple of small islands or something like that went away, but and some of the harbors or creeks that used to be. I know the names of most of them, but there is some that apparently I don't know.
Really?
I mean, they when you pick up a thing and it says some gut or something, you know, I don't know where it's at. But
yeah.
But most of the creeks and the basins, wasn't any harbors here when I was a kid, other than the one that they dug at Rodamp.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was it.
That was the only harbor there was here.
And somebody said there used to be a cow pen where the
Yeah, that was.
land plains.
That's where they're developing down there now.
Oh, really? Is that right on the farthest edge of Waves, or? Is
Well,
it
it was.
south?
Yeah, it was right. It started about abreast of where the post office is at, and run almost to Salville. Now, my uncle had the cow pen, but he didn't own it.
Oh,
He didn't own the land.
Yeah.
I guess people let him use it. He fenced it in after they passed the no stock law back in the late 20s or early 30s, when they had to take all the old timer you say, the old critters,
Right.
and put them in a pen. You know, they couldn't let
Why
them
did they
just
have
roam
that
free.
law? Because of disease or something?
Well, no, they claim that they were eating up all the vegetation,
Oh,
causing erosion real bad.
yeah.
But and I guess people wanted to keep them from coming in their yards and stuff.
So your uncle had that pen,
Yeah.
and then there was a little landing strip, or they just used it as a landing strip?
Well, I don't ever remember being any planes land there.
Oh, well, somebody said that the doctor used to fly in, but it might have been a different cow pen. It might have been...
Somewhere else, I think.
Is there one up by Rodanthe, by the harbor?
Not that I know
Anyway, they said that the plane would land right
of.
in
My
the water.
sister had a boyfriend from Norfolk,
Mhm.
and he used to fly in here, but he lived out on the beach out here.
He would land on the beach?
Yeah, well, not on the ocean side, but out where all these houses are at out here, there used to be a real flat place there, and he'd land there. He
That
had
must have been handy.
a biplane,
Yeah.
two-wing plane, all open cockpit,
Right.
when he built himself. And he got killed in it working on it.
Oh my gosh. Well, what do you think the biggest changes are that have been happening here?
Well, there's so many changes. Everything has changed. Nothing is the same anymore. The building boom is the biggest change we've had, and that's come in the last 15 years, and especially the last couple of years.
Right.
And I think the reason is that they're about to build out on up the beach, and people with the bridge, they started migrating as far as they can go. And now they're building this out.
They built up the Nags Head
Yeah,
area, now they're
yeah,
moving down this way.
yeah. I think that's got a lot to do with it.
And they have to stay within the village border.
Yeah,
not
yeah,
be
they
on
can't,
parkland.
yeah, no, that's right. And that's what I say, I'm sorry the Park Service didn't take more land.
Yeah.
At least took another 500 foot.
Right. Because you can see they're all lined up in a line.
Oh, yeah,
This
yeah.
is where they
Yeah.
could be.
The end of the Park Service line. And of course up in Rodanthe, as you come in the village coming this way from Nags Head,
Uh-huh.
the Park Service doesn't have any more land. It's all washed away.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know what the deal is on that. They're trying to stop the driving. Well, I guess they have stopped it for like from May until September or something like that. But the Park Service doesn't patrol it because they don't own any more property there.
Just washed away.
All their property's in the ocean. Well, that's my understanding.
Yeah. Well, I could see how that would be.
Yeah, we've had a lot of erosion in the last few years,
Right.
last 10 years, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. It just seems to get more all the time worse.
So how do you think the community has changed with all these other changes?
Well, there isn't any community anymore.
Really?
No. Used to, everybody went and visited everybody else. I mean, that was the big highlight. It was visiting. Now nobody visits anymore. In fact, you don't even know your next door neighbor.
Well, why do you suppose people aren't visiting anymore?
I don't know.
You could still visit.
There's too much going on. Too busy.
Right.
We don't have time anymore. I had more time before I retired than I've got now.
He don't play.
Yeah. Did you grow up here in Waves too?
No, she's a Kenny Keeter.
I'm a Tennessee.
You are. I love that word, kinnikeet.
I said, oh, yes, Lord.
Okay. Now, how did y'all meet then?
Happenstance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had a night spot down at Frisco that all the young people migrated there,
Uh-huh.
and you get to know people that you didn't know, meet people.
In Frisco.
Frisco,
What
yeah.
was it called?
Tandies.
Candy.
T-A-N-D-Y-S, Tandies.
Was it square dances or?
Oh, a little bit of everything. Yeah, yeah. A beer joint. This is what it's amounted to, is a beer joint with a jukebox.
Yeah, and so the kids from all over the island would meet there?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Well, that's nice.
And that was after they got the highway in 52.
Right.
About the only time we ever went that way when I was growing up was when we had ball games, inter-school ball games.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Rodanthe school would go down to Avon and play, or go to Hatteras and play, or they would come up here and play.
Right.
Inter-school rivalries.
Was competitions?
Yeah. But there wasn't anything like it is now. You didn't play on school days, it was on Saturdays.
Oh, wow, uh-huh.
It wasn't any getting out of school to play games.
Did you go to Rivalries school?
Yeah.
K through 12?
No. It didn't have K or it didn't have 12. 1 through 11.
1 through 11.
Yeah.
Were you considered graduated after 11, or
Yeah,
were you
yeah.
supposed
I
to
received
go
a
away?
diploma. The year I graduated was the last year that they had a 11th grade. We went to 12 grades the next year.
Okay. You got out just in the nick of time.
Yeah, just in the nick of time. In fact, the one girl that was in the 11th grade or the 10th grade, they advanced her to the 12th grade
Oh.
so that she wouldn't have to serve, go an extra year.
Oh, that was nice.
So there was just one girl in the class. There was 3 in my class, 2 boys and a girl.
Do you still keep up with them?
Oh yeah, we see them once in a while. One of the girls still lives at Salville, and boy, he lives up in Elizabeth City.
Oh,
See him
nice.
occasionally, but not real often.
Yeah.
But all still living, so.
Yeah. It's a small class.
Yep. Yep, 3. And one immediately behind us, like I said, was just one girl.
Right.
And I think from that on they got a little bigger until they consolidated school and moved it down to Buxton.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what year that was. Probably 40.
I remember what time you all went down
The same time you did Avon, I
there.
think.
No, they were ahead of Avon.
Huh?
Ahead of it.
Was it? I'm not exactly sure when.
Yeah.
After they got the highway, though, I think.
Right.
50, probably in 51, 52, something like that.
Now, did they used to have square dances too, or was that before your time?
Well, once in a while, the biggest time was at Old Christmas,
Oh, yeah.
and they'd have a square dance.
Did you go to all those old Christmases?
I used to when I was a kid. In fact, somewhere I got a picture of me riding Old Buck.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which Old Buck was nothing but a cow's head with a nailed on a piece of 2x4 or 2x6 with a blanket thrown over it.
Was Old Buck supposed to be scary to
Oh
children?
yeah. Actually, Old Buck come out of Frisco Woods, so they say.
Uh-huh.
And that's the tale that people would tell their kids to frighten them into being good. But if you don't behave, Old Buck's going to get you.
Okay.
It was a mysterious old steer that lived in Buxton Woods and just come out after bad children. Frisco, I mean.
Out of Frisco.
Yeah.
Was that based on a true story? Was there a crazy steer?
I think it was just something made up by people, like I say, to scare their kids into being good.
And so when do you suppose they started doing Old Buck on Christmas?
I don't know.
As long as
Before
you
I
know.
can remember.
Did you ever come up for it from Avon?
Forest.
Yeah.
After I got grown.
Were you glad you came?
No.
Well, really, what it was a chance for everybody to get drunk and fight.
They fight to scare people.
They got their years hard feelings over with in one night.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's a great idea in a way.
Yeah, more or less.
Just one night. And so, were they different from different communities? I mean, who would
Primarily these 3 communities, and the bigger part actually was this community in Rodanthe.
And did people go thinking maybe I'll get into a fight, or did they just?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would people in the year get mad at somebody and think, I'm
It'll
gonna
get you Old Christmas,
Old Christmas? Did they think that way?
probably.
Did you ever fight?
Me, no, I was never big enough.
Did you watched fights?
Yeah, I watched them.
Were they in fun or were they serious?
Well, the next day they were best of friends.
Yeah.
Probably didn't remember them, half of them.
Did anybody ever come down from Wanchese?
Very seldom. There used to be a guy that came down, that his people were originally from here, and he would play the drums.
Okay.
And very seldom anybody would come up.
Right.
Of course, back then, the only way they could get here before the highway, on the ferry, was either come on a sailboat or something. So they didn't, unless it was somebody that was originally from here. would come in on the mail boat or the fish boat, you know,
I see.
and stay with some of their people just for Old Christmas.
Right. So how would it unfold? There would be it was kind of an all-day thing? People
Yeah,
would
it was an all-day affair. They start out like in the afternoon with a turkey shoot, or actually back then they shot for oysters.
Right.
You didn't have no turkeys. And then later on, about dark, they would start having a chicken stew. They'd stew chickens, you know.
Ah,
Most of them were stolen from somebody if they could steal them.
really? Did people dress in costume?
No, no. And then after the chicken stew was over and the oyster roast, always had an oyster roast. After that was over, then they'd have the dance. A couple of local guys played guitar and a mouth harp, and the guy would beat the drums.
Did they have a fiddle?
It seemed to me like there was somebody who played a fiddle. I'm not sure, once or twice. But a normal thing, it was guitar and a mouth harp and drums.
Right.
That was it. And that was local yokels that could make a little tune.
And that's when people would dance?
Yeah.
When did people fight? After the dance?
Well, during the dance, after the dance.
And when did Old Buck come out?
Usually that was pretty much the wind up of it when Old Buck come in.
And what would happen when Old Buck came out?
Oh, everybody would, you know, it was a big thing.
Was it one guy or two guys?
Two guys under this thing, and one leading. Actually, like I say, it was like a piece of 2x6 or something with his head nailed on it,
Yeah.
and a couple of guys under it with blankets thrown over them.
Right.
And once in a while, somebody would try to get up, but usually the guy that was leading them wouldn't let anybody jump on their back, you know, because
Yeah.
it's kind of rough on their back with that 2x4 up there.
And so they would just kind of walk around?
They'd just lead him in the house and make
The
a
kids
circle
would-
and lead him back out.
The kids would scream
Oh,
and
yeah,
run,
yeah.
get excited.
Yeah, and the women.
Did Old Buck make noise?
No, he didn't make any noise.
And then they'd lead him out, and that
Lead
was
him
it.
out, and that was it for another year.
Now, do they still have Old Christmas?
At times, I think they have, mostly every year they have,
Yeah.
but it's not the same anymore.
Yeah.
I've not been up there in 25 years, maybe more than that, I don't know. I don't go anymore because it's got commercialized. Back then it was free, you know.
Yeah.
Everything was free, now you have to pay.
You have to pay?
Oh yeah. Like I say, everything is commercialized now. There's nothing
Right.
like it used to be.
And today, are there tourists that go?
Oh yeah, primarily I think.
Really?
Yeah. There is a lot of local people. I say a lot. There's a few local people that still go.
Right. But they charge for the chicken dinners.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Dance.
yeah. So it's all commercialized now.
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be that it was just a spur of the moment thing. Everybody would go out oystering, get a few oysters,
Right.
and like I say, they'd either donate the chickens or they'd steal them.
Did the boys have that job, go around stealing chickens?
Well, I have a couple of times.
Yeah.
In fact, got shot at one night.
You did?
Yeah, trying to steal somebody's chicken
Oh my gosh.
for chicken stew.
Were you right here in Waves? Or?
No, it was in Rodent.
Oh my gosh. I hope they were only using rock salt.
No, I think maybe they were shooting in the air. I don't know, but I wasn't
Yeah.
taking any chances back then.
And they expected, like the night before, that a lot of people had to watch out for the chickens.
Oh yeah,
and
they
stuff.
expected that their chickens were going to be raided.
Oh my gosh. Well, that must have been the most fun for boys.
Well, that was about all the excitement you had.
And why do you think it was a tradition here and not in Avon or?
I really don't know. They claim that it's been going on for ever since they changed calendars and got the 12 days taken off, you know. And people in this area still observe the, what do you call it, Epiphany, or the 12th day.
Oh yeah, right.
That's what it is. It's 12 days after 25th.
So
usually
People
come.
here wanted to stick with that.
The old ways, I guess. Didn't want to change.
And everybody else went with the flow.
Well, I guess everybody else went with the flow.
Did you notice a lot of difference between Kinnikeet and this area?
A lot.
Really? What were some of the differences?
That coral time here.
They did what? Fought?
We didn't have anything else to do, so we fought.
A lot of it.
Yeah. Things were more peaceful and
Oh, yes.
That's her version.
right.
That's just a lot of it.
Did you ever have any serious crime or murders or anything in this area?
Almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Never had any lawyer until I guess in the 50s, 60s, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably the 50s.
Huh?
We had a sheriff at Manio,
Right.
and I think he had one deputy down in, well, the first one was from Frisco, and the next one was from Buxton. But they were more named than anything else.
Yeah. Well, how about today for a child growing up in Waves or Seld or Anthony? Are things so different?
Oh yes, there's no comparison whatsoever. Our big thing here back then was we made our own wine and drank it.
Oh, yeah. Moonshine?
No, not moonshine, wine,
Uh-huh.
like blackberry wine or something like that.
Oh, right.
And now there's so much drugs and stuff.
Are there a lot of drugs
Yeah,
on the island?
pitiful, really is.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It's just like the cities now.
Right.
Well, I guess everywhere's that way. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, how do you think it's accessible here just because of being close to Norfolk or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You never know who's bringing it in.
Right.
I mean, I know there's plenty of it here, so there's no question about that.
Yeah.
But who brings it, I have no idea.
And you see a lot of young kids getting in trouble with drugs.
Yep.
And what do you suppose they're doing that? Is it they're bored, or it's just instead of wine now they have something more
I don't know.
dangerous?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like most young people, they'll try anything.
Right.
But this stuff now, the hard drugs, once you try it, you're hooked.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no backing off from it, I don't think.
Right. There's some bad stuff out
Yeah,
there that messes
that's
with
right.
people's brains.
That's right. It's not like it used to be. We made a bottle of homemade wine, and the next day your head there was so bad you didn't even want to think about it for another month.
Yeah. Did anybody out here make any moonshine too?
I don't ever remember any being made here.
What is meal wine? Ocracoke.
Meal tea?
Meal
Yeah,
tea?
meal wine, yeah.
Yeah.
They make it out of meal.
Is that wine?
Yeah,
or
ferment,
moonshine?
no, it's wine.
Okay.
It's, make it out of meal instead of, they ferment meal,
Right.
instead of corn. I guess you could call it moonshine. The only thing is they don't run theirs off they just let it ferment and then strain it off. It wasn't one of those things that it passed through coils and condensers and stuff,
Because apparently that was a big deal in Ocracoke.
Oh yes,
anyway.
yeah. They call it meal tea.
Did you ever go to Ocracoke as a kid?
No, not as a child. It was out of my bailiwick.
Did it seem like it was a whole other
Yeah,
place?
another whole world away almost.
How about you? Did you ever get down there? Yeah. So do you notice differences between Ocracoke and then Hatteras, Frisco?
Oh, there was a difference in all of them. They were all clannish.
Right. But it's mainly the people and the family names?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess probably when I was growing up, I don't know where Buxton was the biggest or Hatteras on the island. It could have been Hatteras, I don't know. And it might have been Buxton. But Frisco was just a small place like was up here, these three little villages. Avon was pretty good size. There was a lot of people lived in Avon.
Yeah, that's what I understand. They had boat building and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they even had a Joe Pond factory and a seaweed factory there.
Is that right?
Yeah, they sent seaweed to New York to make mattresses.
Uh-huh. Wow. Did you ever,
But I don't remember those days.
Did you ever drink Yopon tea?
I tried them.
Is it good? Bitter?
And my daughter loves it. Like,
My grandmother used to drink it. I put sugar in it and it got bitter.
the more sugar you put, the worse you got.
No, that's strange.
Our daughter, she comes home, we have some oak trees out here, and she put some in the oven, dried the leaves.
She loves it.
Make
I
her
don't.
some tea.
Oh, that's nice.
I can't stand it.
Where does she live now?
Newburgh.
Newburgh.
Yeah.
Ah. Well, do you remember any industries in this area that are no longer here?
We didn't have any industry.
Yeah.
Fishing.
Fishing and working the Coast Guard station.
Yeah, that was about it.
Yeah.
Either that or you went off somewhere and got a job.
Right.
Coast Guard and fishing was about it.
What was the most exciting time in the course of the year? Going to weddings or?
I don't, if there was anything exciting, like I say, the only thing exciting was Old Christmas.
Right.
And that was once a year.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything exciting here that I can remember.
Did people make a big deal about weddings?
No, not really, not back then.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a big thing.
They were small
Yeah,
gatherings.
yeah. Mostly just the preacher and participants and their family.
Right.
I can't remember any big weddings up until several years back.
And how about the birth of a child? Was that a big deal?
No.
Yeah. They used to have midwives out here, right?
Yeah, yeah. Didn't have doctors, midwives.
Do you remember any of the old midwives?
Yeah, my grandmother was one.
She was. What was her name?
Orinda,
Orinda?
Midgett.
Orinda Midgett.
Yeah. In fact, she delivered me.
She did?
Yeah.
Do you have, does your family still have her old, medicine bag or whatever she used to
Not that I know of. I don't know if she even had one. In fact, I don't think I even have a picture of her. But I can remember.
That was
Mother,
something.
yeah, I did. I had an old picture of her when she in her wedding gown. I don't know what I've done with them. Somewhere up there.
Yeah.
Found it that my mother had. Grandfather and grandmother in her wedding gown. She was in her wedding gown, and he was dressed up with a big old tie about this big.
Oh, gosh.
What they call them, haskets? Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Was she one of the last midwives?
I don't know. She could have been one of the few that left.
You got so much time to go, you know what's going.
Well, I run across it sometime. I don't know what it's at. Yeah, you're right. This is my office here.
What year did you build this house?
In 1969.
69. Oh,
I
nice.
never move into the one if you're not finished it, because it's not finished.
I know. My husband is a carpenter, and he can't finish. I don't have any kitchen doors.
Well, I don't have a kitchen cabinet.
Well, we understand each other. Because we moved in our house, it wasn't done. It is still not done. That was 15
This one wasn't either.
This was still not done.
That's been 40 years ago.
It's a nice ongoing project.
30-some years ago. I don't know what I've done with them. I know I've got them here somewhere.
But anyway, I said, when you start a home, don't move until it's complete.
Right.
I'll run across them sometime when I'm not looking for them.
Yeah.
Because you never get it done. His daddy told me that. He said, if you move in there before it's done, you'll never finish it.
Yeah, he was right. I didn't think he was, but he was.
Yeah. Well, I guess
Don't wait until afterwards. You better get him doing it right now.
I know. I think that's about all my questions that I had.
Well,
Do you still have your Dory here?
the son has his down here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Where do you keep it, on the shore?
No, it's right back in the backyard.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yep.
Who built that?
The fellow one she's built it for.
It's a wooden Dory?
Yeah, wood.
And what year was that built?
Oh, it's only been about 3 or 4 years ago.
Really? So there's still
Fairly
going
new,
on.
yeah.
Is it pointy on both ends?
Well, it's not really point on both ends. It's not very wide at the back end, but
Right.
comes in, you
Oh,
know,
I see.
yay wide maybe.
Yeah.
This way, the back,
Uh-huh.
belly's out. It's a pretty smart boat. In fact, our harbor's right down here.
Oh, it is.
Had it dug in 1958.
Who did that? Was it like a CCC project or?
No,
Or
cost $500 in 1958 to dig the harbor out. A guy from Collinton done it. His name was Liverman, Sam Liverman. Done it with an old drag line, bucket, you know.
Right.
But no, it was a private thing.
Does your Dory have a name?
No, none of my boats have names.
Does anybody name their Dory? Or is it too small?
Some people do.
They might. I don't know. I don't remember seeing no names on it.
There's one of their people this year that name.
But I don't know. I never paid no attention.
Are you from around here?
Well, I actually grew up in Florida, but I've lived near Hatteras Island for the last 15 years. So,
Is your husband from down here?
he's from upstate. He's from Greensboro.
Greensboro.
But he moved down here in the 70s and worked with the Rose Brothers on Harper's Island. learned
Okay,
how to build
yeah,
boats.
yeah.
He's been building boats ever since.
Yeah, he's real.
Well, if you want your house done, just tell them, say, now, I want this done this weekend, this done this weekend. Then I think you get it done.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think I've tried that. At least when it's an ongoing project, you always have something to look forward to, right?
Yeah. So he builds boats.
Uh-huh. In fact, he builds little Sharpies, and he's built some skipjacks.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. I should have brought some pictures, but I didn't. And he's built a trawler, just this and that, lots of skiffs. He's built a motor sailor. Right now he's doing a restoration of a 1940s yacht that somebody's getting redone.
My youngest son, one lives over in the old home. He bought a shad boat from over Stumpy Point, and it was one of the true shad boats.
Really?
Yeah, had the old cypress knees in it for
Really?
timbers,
Wow.
and the stem and the stern rotted out of it. And our next door neighbor, Michael from Minsky,
Yeah.
he had just moved down here, and he wanted to get experience, so he told him, he said, I'll put the stem and the stern in her for, won't cost you anything if you buy the lumber. So we bought the lumber, and I don't know, it probably took him a year, but he did a fairly good job. Michael was kind of I think he was one of those people that he took pride in everything he done,
Right.
and he wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
And the big thing, I think, of course, those boats were different than most, because she had the round stern. It wasn't only about this wide, The boat was 32 foot long,
Wow.
but the stern was only about this wide.
Really?
Yeah, and it come round like that. And she wasn't the clinker built. The one plank over top of the other.
Right.
They actually joined,
Oh,
butted
right.
against each other. But he sold her to another fella, and he had her fiberglass on the outside. I mean, he sold her to him, but he never did use it. It was originally a sailing
Right.
shad boat, but it still had the step down in the front, the bow where the mast stepped down.
Oh, uh-huh.
And in fact, boy did have the mast that went to her. I don't know whatever went with it. Or it washed away or rotted out or
Why did he want that boat? For history?
No, he wanted it used.
Oh, mhm.
So the old man had been using it for about 60 years that he bought it from. And he sold it to him, and he had put a motor in,
Right.
an engine. And it worked all right on that side of the sound. He bought it from Stumpy Point. Because along the shore over there, they've got fairly deep water.
Right.
But on this side of the sound, it was no good because the draft was too deep.
Oh, God.
It drew it, it had to take about this much water to run in.
Wow.
So everywhere you went, you were aground.
Right.
You just had to stay right in the channels.
So it didn't work out.
No, it didn't work out. So then he turned around and sold it, and the other guy sold it to Mike Keller that runs the rope shop at Manio as you go in on the causeway.
Uh-huh.
And it was my understanding that he was going to donate it to the Mariners Museum up here.
Right.
Now, whether he has or not, I don't know. And I would think if he did, they would probably strip the fiberglass off and restore it to its original.
And that shouldn't be too hard to do.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be hard.
And what did they have? Was that river shad? Is that what they were for?
No, they fished out in the sound out here with
For
it.
shad?
Yeah. Yeah, they used to set pound nets for shad.
And then did they use the roe?
No, I don't know what, they sold it, I guess, and shipped it.
Not menhaden, but shad.
No, shad.
Yeah.
Not what, I know down your way they call menhaden shad.
Yeah.
But this was the true American shad,
Wow, okay.
the big shad, you know.
Yeah.
And they used to set pound nets, and then they after the shad disappeared more or less, then they started setting for butterfish and croakers and trout, and they would come all the way from Stumpy Point over here and set shad nets on the back edge of our reef.
Oh, yeah.
Because they said it was better fishing over here for that type of fish than it was over there.
Really? Were there rivalries with the Stumpy Point fishermen?
No, I don't think so, not really.
Pretty much worked together?
Yeah. There wasn't really a whole lot of pound netting done from this part of the island, from the time I can remember. Now, I think they did before I can remember, but primarily in this part of the island, we were all gill nets.
Okay.
It was primarily gill net.
So what's been the biggest change in technology for fishing? Have any of the fisheries changed?
The fishes have changed, but the biggest technology has been the invention of monofilament.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's been nice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the biggest change.
How about crab pots? I mean,
Yeah, we crab over here.
Yeah.
I crabbed for several years. In fact, I crabbed last summer.
And soft shell crab?
No, we don't have the peelers here like they do up in the brackish water.
Oh, okay.
We have some, but I don't think there's enough. We have tried peeler pots here, and just can't catch them with them. So I think in this area, shedding soft crabs would be a bust,
Yeah.
you know,
And how about
unless you just wanted to do it for your own use. We do that sometimes. We'll take a little floating shedder, you know, and you catch a few peelers in your crab pots and throw them in there and let them shed for your own use, but
and then eat
not
it.
commercially. Yeah.
And clamming? Is there much clamming done?
Used to be a lot of clamming up around Oregon Inlet
Mm-hmm.
and New Inlet, but P Island, you know, where there used to be an inlet there. It was called New Inlet,
Right.
and when that was open, there was a lot of clams in that area.
Oh.
Then there in Hatteras Island and Ocracoke.
And how do people
Right
fish?
in this area, we never have. We had some clams, but not enough to.
Do people kick for clams?
No, not up here. That's something they never done here.
Yeah.
It's all been raking or signing with a gig, you know,
Ah, yeah.
sighting.
That's nice.
That was my favorite, was the sighting. When you know, get on a shoal, real shallow water, either that or a dry shoal,
Right.
and find them with a gig or hole.
What are you looking for?
A hole, a clam hole.
And what's it look like?
Some look like a keyhole, the old type keys, you know,
Yeah.
and some are just a blue place in the ground.
And then you'd see that?
Yeah.
And you'd lay your rake down?
No, not a rake, a gig,
Oh,
3-prong gig.
really? How'd
Yeah.
that work?
Well, you just stuck it down when you hit it, you pop him out his hole.
Really? He would stick him between the prongs?
No, you just hit him and then you snap him out of the hole like that and you pull him out in the sand.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
ever clam?
we
I
rake.
have found that I read.
We rake clams now, but
Gigging them, you have to bend over all the time.
yeah, well, when you're young, you don't mind it. I'd rather do it now.
Really?
I don't have much trouble with my back.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate in that respect.
That's nice.
In fact, I fish just about every day by myself.
So you still do?
Yeah.
Really?
In fact, I was out this morning. That's the reason I told you not to come till the afternoon.
Oh, what'd you catch this morning?
I don't know. I had a few flounders, a few sheep's head,
Uh-huh.
trout, drum, spadefish. I use big marsh nets, flounder nets, you know.
And you didn't run those all the way to Nags Head.
Yeah.
You did? You've already done that?
Yeah. I've been going since 5 o'clock this morning.
Wow. Well,
Got
that's-
up at 3:30.
Really?
I get up 3:30, have my coffee. Usually the paper's here by 4. So I read my paper and take a constitutional,
Yeah? Then off you go.
and then I'm gone.
And that's retirement?
Well, that's retirement is doing something that you enjoy doing.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's nice. And you fish with your boy?
Sometimes, yeah. But now he's crabbing with another fellow, so and I'm not in it in a big way anymore.
Right. How about, do you have grandkids?
Yeah, grandchildren, great grandchildren.
Do they like to go with you sometimes?
Grandchildren used to, great grandchildren not old enough. I had one or two that used to let go in. A couple didn't want to even be around the boat, and more power to them.
Right. You think there's much of a future for commercial fishing?
No, there's no future, in my opinion. No. I think in this country they would rather import fish from countries that doesn't have any laws.
Yeah. Well, it's sad, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And so what do you think will be lost when the fishing's gone?
Well, I think a way of life is going to be lost, if nothing else.
Yeah.
A heritage is going to be lost. But other than that, I don't know. It's like everything else, I guess. If it's not productive, do away with it.
Yeah.
Like the cowboy, he's gone, so the fisherman's going to be gone too.
Farmers are having a hard time.
Farmers have always had a hard time.
Yeah.
Farmers and the fishermen, they've always had a hard time. The only thing the farmer does get a little help, the fisherman doesn't.
Oh, that's right, because they get subsidized.
That's right.
And everything.
Farmer gets subsidized, the fisherman doesn't get anything except a hard time.
I don't think the government respects fishermen very much.
Apparently not.
Do you have children?
I do. I have a 12-year-old in camp right now.
No, we have two great grandchildren. One's 7, one's 3.
Aww.
One's 7 just been to Miss America in the Princess Pageant.
Is that right? Where was that?
Charlotte.
Oh, she must be beautiful.
Let me see.
You have a picture? Let me get all my junk out of the way.
Oh, I think I got the book. Let me see.
And do you take the 3? Is the 3-year-old a girl or a boy?
Boy.
Does he go with you sometimes?
No.
Too little.
Oh my God. Wild as he is, I wouldn't dare take him.
Let me see.
Yeah, turn this off.
School bus driver.
Is that right?
Yeah. The kids went to school real empty. And of course, there was no highway, no electricity.
So you had to drive that bus on the sand?
Yes.
How did you manage that?
Well, we took the dual wheels off of it, and we took the governor off the engine so it would have more power, And we turned some of the pressure down in the tire so it would go in the sand. It didn't have dual wheels on it.
Did you drive on the wet sand by the shore, or did you have a dirt road?
No, we had dirt roads up through the villages. I drove these 3 villages.
Okay.
And it was all on the inside of the villages.
And how many years were you doing that?
I think I drove the bus about 3 or 4 years.
My gracious. And so, when you stopped driving the bus, what did you do?
Well, then, when I stopped driving the bus, I got on a shrimp boat with Mr. Midgett from Waves, and I shrimped out in Pamlico Sound. And after that, I got married when I was 22 years old. And I went to Norfolk and got a job on a tug with Curtis Bay Towing Company. I worked with them a while, and it was a union job, so they sent us home, wait till the jobs come back up. And I got a chance to get a job on a ferry to Oregon Island. Worked with the state. It wasn't a union job. And I started working with a ferry division in 1953.
Really?
And the first job we had, I was on one of them old wooden ferries that Toby Tilley had, and we hauled the tar from across Oregon Island to run the road from Road Anthony to Oregon Island.
The tar?
Yeah.
How did that, was it like a big pile of it?
Had a big old tank on the deck. They would pump it in on the north side and bring it to the south side and pump it in trucks on this side.
Was it gooey?
Yes. The first highway they run, they just put the tar down on the sand and grind it up with a machine. In hot weather, if you stopped your car on it, you would just sink right down in it and get stuck.
Oh my gracious. And then that road ran how far down?
Well, it was all the way from Hatteras up here. Then they run it in sections. They started at Hatteras, and in 1953 they run it from Road Anthony to Oregon Island.
Do you think having the road changed the way of life around here any?
Oh, definitely.
Really? How so?
Went from paradise to nothing.
Because of the road?
Yeah.
And why do you suppose that is?
Well, prior to having a road, I could hunt and fish or do anything I wanted to every day.
Right.
After that, why, it was, too many restrictions and laws and stuff come.
Yeah.
Here come all the people, they found us.
Right. And that was that associated with the Park Service establishing the park and all that too?
Well, the park was just getting started then. They were just acquiring the land and stuff and getting started,
Right. Do you remember that transition? They used to have meetings about it and stuff?
Oh, yeah, I remember all that.
What was that like? Were people upset?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people were upset. There's not many people wanted the Park Service to come, because it was government. They didn't want them to get tangled up with the government.
Right.
And the park took a lot of land from people,
Right. Did you lose any land?
No, I didn't. My grandfather did.
Really?
Yeah, he had 44 acres down south of Salvo, south of the campground. From the campground down to them pine trees down there.
Right.
He had 44 acres. I think they gave him about $750 for it.
Was it on the beach, or was it?
It was west of the highway.
West of the highway.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that wasn't very much money, was it?
No.
So what did he do after that? He could stay in his house and all. That was just uninhabited land?
It was uninhabited,
Yeah.
there was no house or anything on it.
Yeah. Well, on retrospect, do you think it was a good thing or a bad thing that the Park Service came in?
Well, personally, I think it maybe was a good thing. We're not smothered to death with all that riffraff and houses and whatever, you know, they build on beaches and stuff.
Right.
I get along all right with the Park Service.
Well, getting back to your school bus driving days,
Yeah.
did the school bus drive other places